Okay, the ICP slash psychopathic Iceberg I made for our Juggalo the other day, yesterday, whenever the fuck it was. A few people asked for me to make a YouTube video on this, and I thought, why not? I'm not gonna be on video, but I'll record myself talking about it. Just so you know, this is really thrown together. It's not going to be super professional, but it will give you some insight without having to do a fuck ton of research. Okay, first off, we have Violent J and Shaggy 2 Dope, the only two official members of Insane Clown Posse. Very simple. At one point, it was kind of considered that Mikey Clark and Legs Diamond were part of ICP, but that was like in the early 90s, mid 90s, excuse me. That came, if you look I believe in the liner notes of the Great Malenko, it says ICP is Violent J, Shaggy 2 Dope, Mikey Clark, and Legs Diamond. But, that proved to not be true. Only a couple albums later, we found that, ICP really is just Jay and Shaggy, and everyone else who was working with them is just a hired hand. Next up, we have Miracles. I'm really going to try and breeze through these first few tiers kind of quickly because I expect most of you know what this is. Miracles is the song. It appears on Bang Pow Boom. It was highly memed. It's the song in which they say, "Fucking magnets, how do they work?" Please do keep in mind this song is now 14 years old and people still make that joke, and it's really not that fucking funny anymore. Like, I think ICP has explained that they realized that magnets aren't literal miracles. It was kind of a figurative. Anyway, I'm not going to get off on that tangent, but it was a highly memed song. Ultimately, I think it resulted in ICP getting a lot more exposure, though, so hey, cool. The Great Malenko is ICP's, as far as I know, I haven't really checked their sales stats in a while, but as far as I know, the Great Malenko is still the biggest selling ICP album to date. It was their first album that went platinum, and it has quite a few hits on it, and many consider it to be their best album. I do not, but many do. Psychopathic Records. All right, so Psychopathic Records is ICP's record label. Many artists have been signed to it. Very simple. Still exists today. It's been around as long as ICP has. The Nedden Game is the most popular song off of ICP's most popular album, The Great Malenko, or at least it used to be the most popular song. It may not be anymore. But back in the day, you knew somebody was not really into ICP, but they were trying to act like they were, I guess. If they said, "Oh, I know ICP. I love the dating game," or "I love the game show song," and they were not called that. That song was not called the dating game or the game show. It was called the Nedden Game. But people don't know that because Nedden is ICP slang for vagina, and you wouldn't know that unless you listen to ICP a whole lot. The Chop Chop Slide is ICP's Juggaloed out version of the Cha Cha Slide. And according to Spotify, it's a very popular song. I think it was part of the TikTok resurgence. There was a moment there in time where some teenagers were filming themselves on TikTok, in clown paint and rapping ICP songs. Chop Chop Slide, I think, was one of them. Juggalos. Okay. I'm going to say something controversial. A lot of Juggalos I see being like interviewed in videos and stuff like that, they say things like, I've been a Juggalo all my life and I'm still not sure what it is. Or they make it out to be this thing that's really, really cryptic, and it's not really that cryptic. Juggalo is a fan of ICP, Psychopathic Records, and or Psychopathic Records affiliated artists. That's really all it is. It's just a big fan of ICP and or Psychopathic Records and or Psychopathic Records related music. So that would extend to things like probably Magic Ninja Entertainment, Real Life Productions, probably Suburban Noise Records, and maybe in some instances with Strange Music. There are some other, Juggalo related artists, but those are where you'll find a lot of Juggalos. Chicken Huntin' is a song originally on the Ringmaster, but the more popular version is on the Riddle Box. It's kind of odd that ICP would put the same song on two different LPs, but to be fair, they do sound vastly different from one another. The Gathering is the yearly festival in which Juggalos come together or come to gather, and they watch shows of ICP, Psychopathic Records related artists. They also engage in seminars. There are autograph signings. There is a lot of unprotected sex. There are a lot of drugs. I've been to 3 gatherings, and I had a blast. Every time I went. Now, I will say I'm kind of glad it's a memory. It's not something I would do today. Not because I think I'm better than it or anything. It's just not my scene anymore, really. I don't want to be out in the hot fucking sun, baking all day, getting dirty and all that shit. But back in the day, I used to love that shit. If it looks intriguing to you, then go check it out. I urge you. Beef with Eminem. In the late 90s, I think actually 1999, and early 2000s, Insane Clown Posse had a beef with who many would say is still the biggest rapper in the world, or at least one of them, and that being Eminem. You can kind of get the details of this beef by looking it up online. It's really not that hard to piece together, but basically Eminem put ICP's name on a flyer back before when he was an underground artist in Detroit, trying to use their name to get some attention, I guess. And ICP took issue with that. Eminem then held a grudge, and basically he dissed them on Howard Stern. And ICP did not take that very well, so they made a song dissing him back called Slim Anus. None of this beef is aged very well. All of it is just them going back and forth calling each other gay. That's all it is. Slim Anus is just one long gay joke. That's all it is. And then you've got Eminem's response, which came on the song Marshall Mathers off the Marshall Mathers LP, in which he just calls ICP gay, basically. Then they responded to that with a song called Nuttin' But a Bitch Thing, in which they call Eminem gay. And that's kind of where it ended. It also is touched back on the song Please Don't Hate Me off Bizarre Bizarre. But Eminem never mentioned ICP again until way later after the beef was squashed, in which he kind of sort of seemed like he was giving him some props. The beef is long squashed, though. It's over. It's done. Really just kind of a goofy fucking moment in history. And none of the disses were particularly clever. Eminem has made some really good diss tracks. ICP has made some good diss tracks, but none of them were involved in the ICP Eminem feud, in my opinion. Faygo. Faygo is a cheap soda bottled in Detroit. ICP throws it all over the crowd during their shows. A lot of people know this. A lot of people who have never been to an ICP show are aware that they spray Faygo. What they're not aware of is the sheer volume of how much Faygo they throw on the crowd. If you go to an ICP show and especially if you're in the first few rows, you will walk out and like jets of Faygo will squirt out of your shoes as you're walking out of the show. It is a voluminous amount of soda that they are pouring on you. And it never stops, and it gets in your fucking eyes, and it burns, and it's a crazy experience. I love it. I love everything about the Faygo at the shows. But if you saw ICP prior to from the Amazing Jekyll Brothers tour, and before ICP actually used regular Faygo with sugar in it, they stopped with the Clowns from Outer Space tour. That's when they started throwing diet Faygo because the sugar was very hard on the equipment and stage props, and the diet soda worked much better. It didn't burn nearly as bad getting in your eyes either. The original stuff, when they were using the sugary stuff, I saw them a couple times when they were still using the sugar stuff, and let me tell you, like, you would have trouble blinking because your eyelids would stick together. I'm not kidding. So be glad that you get the diet Faygo now, because back in the day it was something else. In My Room is a song off Hell's Pit. It was, according to Spotify, again, it's a very, very popular ICP song. I think that was part of the TikTok resurgence also. A lot of people filmed themselves rapping along to In My Room. Kicked off Hollywood Records. Okay, I'm going to say something controversial again. ICP likes to say that they're self-made, and that's mostly true. They mostly are self-made, but they did get a break. They got a break when they were signed to Hollywood Records. But prior to the Great Malenko, ICP was predominantly a regional act. Detroit, a little bit of Ohio, and oddly enough, Texas. But that's a long story. You'll have to read Violent J's book, Behind the Paint, if you want to know that whole story on how they got popular in Texas. But basically, Hollywood Records saw all the noise they were making in the Midwest and signed them. And that was a pretty big break for ICP. It allowed them to work with people like Slash from Guns N' Roses. It allowed them to work with Alice Cooper. Steve Jones, apparently, from the Sex Pistols, even though there's some debate on whether or not he actually appears on that album. It really got them a lot of big names on their album. And then Hollywood Records was owned by Disney, pulled The Great Malenko from shelves a mere, I believe, 6 hours after it was released. And that garnered more attention than anything. They thought that the album was profane and disgusting and would reflect upon them poorly as a company, so they yanked the album off store shelves, and that caused everybody to want to hear it. And that, again, that was kind of ICP's big break. If you the whole release around The Great Malenko really did, I'm not in any way, shape, or form denigrating what ICP did before that. They worked very, very hard to get to where they were, to get to Hollywood Records. But that whole release around The Great Malenko really was a huge break for ICP. It was a lot of cards falling where they may, and then, it ended up being a very good hand for them. They got dealt a very good hand with that whole Hollywood Records Great Malenko release. And I don't think anybody can really debate that. Twiztid is indisputably the most successful act Insane Clown Posse has ever signed to Psychopathic Records. They are no longer friends. They were friends for many, many, many years. And they worked together. They were on the same label. They had a supergroup called Dark Lotus with Blaze, who I'll get into in a moment. But Twiztid was really, really the only other true success story besides ICP on Psychopathic Records. And I say that because they have since left Psychopathic Records, have their own label, Magic Ninja Entertainment, and are doing, by all measures, fine. They're not like super famous or anything like that, but they're standing on their own. So, they're really the only group Psychopathic Records ever produced that was able to completely stand on their own. Blaze, your dead homie. He is another rapper signed to Psychopathic in the early days of when Psychopathic was signing artists. ABK started out as Blaze's hype man, ended up being a solo artist, which I think he actually was a little more successful than Blaze. I think he resonated more with the Juggalos, but I am not a fan of ABK. Never liked him. Love Blaze, you dead homie, though. For my money, Blaze is way better. Big Money Hustlers and Big Money Rustlers, those are ICP's feature films. Big Money Hustlers came out in 2000, although it was filmed in, I believe, 1998. Big Money Rustlers didn't come out until around, I'm not checking any of my sources on this, I'm just going off memory, but I want to say 2009 or 2010, maybe, something like that. It was a long break between movies. Big Money Rustlers is a prequel. It's a Western. Big Money Hustlers, I guess you would describe loosely as a movie about a cop trying to break up an organized crime boss group. I don't, there's really no plot to either movie. Big Money Hustlers is hilarious if you've got a sense of humor. Big Money Rustlers, significantly less charming. Neither of them are what you would call good movies, but they're fun. Real Juggalos and FLH. FLH stands for Fago Lovers Heaven. Real Juggalos and Fago Lovers Heaven were ICP fan sites back in the day, and they were very, very popular. I don't have the web statistics in front of me. I've never had access to the web statistics, but I would venture to guess that Real Juggalos and Fago Lovers probably got more traffic than ICP's official sites. They were heavily visited by Juggalos back in the day. Back when websites still mattered. Websites don't matter anymore. Everything's social media now. But at the time, websites did matter, and you had message boards on these websites, and people would really do a lot of talking, and it sounds... Trying to explain it now is really difficult, but it's where things got organized, were those websites. That's where the whole Juggalo movement really got organized, was on the fan sites. We kind of organized ourselves back in the day. ICP didn't really organize us. They gave us something to want to look at, but I don't think you would have, I genuinely don't think you would have half the Juggalo community you have today if it had not been for those fan sites back in the day. And I'll go even one step further. I don't think that you would have the gathering of the Juggalos today without those fan sites. I really, really don't. For reasons that I really can't articulate in this video, because I would be here for hours and hours and hours trying to explain to you what that whole scene was like. And it just, I don't have enough time in my day. You don't have enough time in your day to listen. But yeah, those fan sites back in the day were instrumental in creating the Juggalo community. All right. Actually starting to get into some shit you may not know. Zug Island was the first rock band signed to Psychopathic Records. Long story with that one. Basically, Violent J wanted to do a rock project. He wanted to sing it. He wanted Rude Boy to sing it at one point. I'll get into that in a bit. But it ended up with a guy named Sin being the singer. And I believe Mike P playing guitar, who ended up being a producer for ICP for several years. Zug Island was, they were all right. They were very divisive within the Juggalo community. People liked them or didn't like them. And up to that point, Psychopathic was mostly rap. And Zug broke that, unless you consider ICP to be a rock outfit, which, they were kind of half and half at the time. Now they're pretty much seen as a rap group, but Malenko and Jekyll Brothers did a lot to make them, kind of feel like they were part of the whole rap metal thing. But aside from that, Zug Island was the first pure rock band to be on Psychopathic. And they released one album on Psychopathic called Cracked Tiles, which is kind of considered a Juggalo classic by today's standards. And then they had another album that they released on, I believe, a subsidiary of Psychopathic called Hatchet House. And that was called 333, or maybe it was a different. Psychopathic Records broke off into several different subsidiaries at one point in the mid 2000s. And one of those was Zug's. I can't fucking talk today. Was Zug Island's second album, 333. Not as good as Cracked Tiles. JCW is Violent J and Shaggy Two Dope's wrestling promotion. If you don't know, ICP are big wrestling fans, and they are wrestlers, and they own their own wrestling promotion. It's called JCW, which stands for Juggalo Championship Wrestling, although it used to stand for Juggalo Championship, as in poop wrestling. Stranglemania 1 and 2. Prior to the days of JCW, you had Stranglemania, which were videos where I shit you not, okay? By today's copyright infringement standards, this sounds like utter lunacy. But in the 90s, somehow this shit flew. ICP took old wrestling videos of fairly famous wrestlers like Mick Foley and Terry Funk and spliced them together and recorded their own commentary over it and then sold it. They were basically selling videos of wrestlers in the wrestling ring and profiting off of it and not paying the wrestlers, which is crazy to think about now. Like, if you put something up on YouTube and it has, a couple of seconds too many of copyrighted material, they'll take your shit down in a heartbeat now. But in those days, ICP was just selling that shit, making money hand over fist. Now, I will say a lot of those wrestlers got pissed at ICP when they found out they were doing it, and ICP did make amends financially to, I won't say all or even most, but several of the wrestlers. Terry Funk being a particularly noteworthy story in that. Isham. The thing to remember with Isham is this. Without Isham, there would be no ICP. He came before ICP. He's a Detroit rap legend. I believe his first album came out in 1989. It was called it was called Isham's Boomin', which later became Boomin' Words from Hell. And if you don't know Isham, or alternatively, if you know Isham purely by his more recent releases, I urge you, go listen to Kill the Fetus, go listen to Closed Casket, because they're fucking great albums. Isham was signed to Psychopathic for a very short time, I believe between 2002 and 2004 or 5. He left rather acrimoniously, actually. He left pissed the fuck off at ICP. I don't really know entirely why. But his relationship has been tumultuous with ICP all throughout their career. Like, he dissed them on tongues. He said something like, treat you like Joe Bruce with two faces, calling Violent J two-faced. He and ICP have had a very rocky relationship until recently, it seems. They've been very on again, off again, and then recently, in the last few years, they seem to mostly just be getting along. I know recently ICP's been doing the whole three-headed monster thing. Or not ICP, but Violent J's been doing the whole three-headed monster thing with Isham and Ouija Mac. They seem like they've worked out their differences, but for a long time, Isham and ICP were a weird relationship. It was either like Isham was totally down with ICP or he totally fucking hated him. And it was just back and forth and back and forth. Anyway. The bet with Sharon Osbourne. Okay, so there was an episode of The Howard Stern Show in which Sharon Osbourne confronted ICP. ICP had a band called Coal Chamber on the Amazing Jekyll Brothers tour. I went to that tour, actually, and I think the show I went to on that tour was the first show that Coal Chamber was not on. ICP threw Coal Chamber off the tour because they said that Coal Chamber was not selling enough tickets to justify the cost of having them on the tour. Sharon Osbourne got mad, accused ICP of being jealous of Coal Chamber, and kind of accused ICP of being like a flavor of the week, and said that their next album wouldn't do as well and they would get dropped from their label. ICP took that bet, and I don't remember what the exact numbers were, but she said that it would sell under a certain amount of albums and that they would debut lower on Billboard and that they would get dropped from their label. I think the amount was $100,000. It was either $100,000 or $500,000 or something like that. More money than I've ever seen, that's for sure. The ICP took the bet, and we'll get more to that in a moment, actually. Gang connections. So you can kind of look at that two ways. One is that ICP were a gang. It started out as Inner City Posse, and ICP was a gang. And then they changed to Insane Clown Posse and stopped being a gang. But, as to how legitimate of a gang they were, I don't really know. Even ICP is kind of like, we were kind of a soft gang, comparatively speaking. Also, though, the gang connections can be looked at as when the FBI classified Juggalos as a gang. A lot of people said they were getting harassed by police and losing their jobs for having ICP memorabilia or tattoos. That never happened to me, thank goodness. Not saying it didn't happen to anyone else. I'm just saying, and fortunately, I was fortunate enough to have never been treated badly due to wearing ICP memorabilia. I guess unless you want to count like high school when people would be like ICP sucks, and I'd be like okay. But other than that, AMB, also known as Axe Murder Boys, they are a group that got signed to Psychopathic Records through a very different kind of means than most artists. Most artists, ICP, all the signing was internal, but Psychopathic Records held this contest, and I think it was called Underground Psychos, but I called it Juggalo Idol. That's what I called it. I called it Juggalo Idol because it was just like American Idol, but for Juggalo acts. Basically, they had people send their demos in. I'm sure they got tons, and they sifted through, found the best ones, and then had people vote on which they thought were the best ones. And it even came complete with like commentary from the other artists on Psychopathic. And that was an interesting little competition. And I think it came down to two artists. One was called Players Lounge Crew, also known as PLC. The other was Axe Murder Boys, also known as AMB, and Axe Murder Boys 1. A lot of initialisms you're probably noticing. ICP, ABK, AMB, PLC. You gotta really know your initialisms if you're gonna get into Juggalo shit. But yeah, a lot of people were not happy that Axe Murder Boys won. People accused it of being rigged, the whole Juggalo Idol competition. But it was, I don't think it was. Because I think, and now I'll go ahead and mention Boondocks, who is right below Axe Murder Boys. Boondocks is an example of why I don't think that the contest was rigged. Because Boondocks was signed... I'm pretty sure he sent his demo in for the Juggalo Idol competition, and ICP just kind of set his demo aside and was like, you're not going to be in the competition, we just want to sign you. And I feel like if they wanted to rig it, they wouldn't have bothered rigging it. If they wanted Axe Murder Boys, then they would have just done the same thing with Axe Murder Boys. It's their label. They can sign whoever they want, and they can not sign whoever they want. So logically speaking, I don't think that's what happened, but I don't know. I wasn't there. I mean, I was there for it, but I wasn't in the inner workings. I don't know what was going on with all that. As to whether it was rigged or not, I have no stance on it, really, but probably not. All right. I have, for you, it was no time at all, but for me, it was a good little bit there. I had to take a little break before explaining Project Leenda and Ray Day, because it's a bit of a what the fuck kind of moment in Psychopathic history. So in 2000, when ICP released Bizarre Bizarre, there was a song on it called Let's Go All the Way. And for the first time in history, ICP was getting some. When I say some, I mean very, very little. Some airplay on MTV. They were on MTV before, but they were only on MTV as like news pieces. MTV News loved ICP, but MTV itself did not like playing ICP at all. It was just not a thing that they wanted to do. They did not want to play ICP. But when ICP came out with Let's Go All the Way, which is not an ICP song that you would expect. It's pretty much entirely a rock and roll song. And it features a band on it actually called Perpetual Hype Engine, who I'll get into later. Having said that, Let's Go All the Way was getting a little bit of play on MTV, like late at night. And ICP really, probably not ICP now that I think about it, probably mostly just Violent J. Violent J really, really wanted that song to get on TRL. This is why I had to take a break before I did this, because this really requires some explaining. If you're listening to this and you're under the age of like 30 something, you probably don't even know what the fuck TRL is. TRL was a show on MTV back in the day. It was called Total Request Live. And it was basically if you're anybody in the music business, your video is getting played on TRL. And it was all driven by votes, or at least that's what MTV said. It was all driven by fan voting. I don't believe that for a second. I think they picked who they wanted. I always thought that. But regardless, TRL was a fucking titan in the music industry. If you were on TRL, you had fucking arrived. In any case, fucking ICP really, really wanted to be on TRL. And this confused a lot of juggalos, because before Let's Go All the Way was getting any spin on MTV, ICP had a very fuck MTV attitude. They were like, fuck the radio, fuck MTV. And nowadays, no one gives a shit if their shit's on the radio or on MTV or not. People want to be viral on YouTube. They want to be viral on Twitter. They want to go do well on Spotify. It's a completely different landscape now. But back in those days, radio and MTV is all that mattered when it came to music. Underground music was much harder to get a hold of. Nowadays, there still exists an underground, I guess, but I don't know, it's just different, man. Like I said, I ain't got all day to explain all this, but underground music is easier to access today than it was back then. That's basically the best way I know how to explain that. Having said that, ICP really wanted to be on TRL, and this confused a lot of juggalos. So Violent J comes up with this idea, and he's like, it's called Project Leenda, and he basically said, on this day, whatever day it was, I can't remember what day it was, but it was called Project Leenda. Leenda, according to them, meant all or nothing. On this day, we need all the juggalos in the world to vote for Let's Go All the Way on TRL and get it to number one. We need juggalos to show up in Times Square, where MTV was headquartered at the time. We need you all to show up to Times Square and like chant for ICP, be in face paint, be in juggalo gear, all that good stuff. And they did it. I mean, they fucking went to Times Square and they voted. And according to ICP, it was rigged. And they basically silenced the juggalos. They had the juggalos removed from Times Square. All kinds of stuff. I don't really know what the ins and outs of it were. I don't know if it really was rigged. I don't know if Violent J was just mad that his plan didn't work. I really don't know or care. I just know that it was, at the time, it was not a good look for ICP. A lot of juggalos took offense to it because they were like, I thought we didn't care about mainstream success. I thought we were self-contained. And when I say a lot of juggalos, I include myself in that. But it really wasn't just me. It was a lot of people. They were, basically calling ICP sellouts. Not for no reason. Not for no reason. ICP really espoused this fuck MTV ethos for a very long time. And then all of a sudden they were like, please help us get on MTV. Please help us get on MTV. We'll do anything. Please help us get on. It was unflattering is what it was. It was unflattering. In any case, that came and went. And then Violent J came up with a second Juggalo mission, I believe it was called. It was called Ray Day. And basically what had happened was ICP had made a bet with Sharon Osbourne, as previously mentioned. And basically, Sharon Osbourne bet them that their album wouldn't sell very well. I don't know what the exact figures were, but she bet them that it wouldn't sell as well as the Jekyll Brothers. And that pretty much came true. I think the Juggalo Brothers debuted at maybe number 3 on the Billboard Top 200. And Bizarre Bizarre was their next album, and they debuted at number 20 and 21, I believe. So a pretty significant drop. And ICP was not okay with that. They did not want to lose that bet with Sharon Osbourne. So what they did was they asked all the Juggalos, I'm not kidding, they really did this. Violent J specifically did this. He asked all the Juggalos to go out and buy Bizarre Bizarre again. And he said to give it to a friend that didn't know anything about ICP, basically. He asked them to do this so that it would bump their sales. And they promised everyone they would get a prize if they did this. If they submitted their receipt for having bought Bizarre Bizarre on the specified date that was Ray Day, which I don't remember what the date was. But they basically, they asked, I want to say it was sometime in January or February of 2001, something like that. It was definitely in 2001, yeah. And because Bizarre Bizarre came out on Halloween of 2000, and this would have happened around January or February, maybe March of 2001. And basically, I don't know if it helped. I don't know if Ray Day helped or not. I didn't do it. I was not going to go buy a fucking album again. Just not my thing. I'm not fucking here to help you win bets with Sharon Osbourne, okay? I'm here to enjoy music. That's what I'm here for. I don't care about your ego. And I don't know. So I said earlier we would get back to who won the bet with Sharon Osbourne. I don't really know who won that bet. Now, Sharon Osbourne claims she won. She went back on the Howard Stern show later, and she claimed that she won. She had proof that she won. Violent J claims that ICP won. Nobody got paid. It was a whole pissing contest. That's all it was. It was just a big fucking pissing contest. Sharon Osbourne was mad at ICP for throwing their band off of the tour. ICP was mad at Sharon Osbourne for belittling their success and relegating them to being a flavor of the week type band, which they proved not to be ultimately. I will say that. They did ultimately prove not to be a flavor of the week type band. ICP has nothing, if nothing else, longevity. So that's pretty much indisputable. As to the specific terms of the bet, who won, I don't really know, but if I had to guess, I would say Sharon Osbourne probably came closer to winning than ICP did. Especially since Violent J had to resort to asking his fucking fans to buy the album a second time to help them win the bet. That reeks of I didn't win the bet. So I don't know who won, but it was not ICP. Kind of an ugly moment in Juggalo history, actually. And Violent J, I will give him due credit, okay? If all this sounds bad, I will give Violent J due credit. In the shoot interview they did with Chris Hansen a couple of years ago, I want to say it was 2020. Yeah, it was 2020, October of 2020. I believe Chris Hansen asked if ICP had any regrets about their careers. And Violent J said his only regret was Ray Day. He did actually regret that. And I think that's good. I'm glad he has the introspection to see that was really not a good look. Coming from one person who was there when it happened, it really reeked of desperation, and it was not a good moment. But again, I think he learned from that, and he hasn't. I don't think he's tried to exploit his fan base quite like that ever since. I don't think he has. Not that I've seen it anyway. Who won the bet? No one. Everyone lost. Everyone lost. ICP lost. Sharon Osbourne lost for even fucking getting involved, and the fans lost like a motherfucker. But you know what? Bygones be bygones. It is worth mentioning because it is it was an interesting moment in Juggalo history, so it needed to be included in the Iceberg, I think. But it's a forgive and forget type situation for most people, I think. Yeah, so I turned my air conditioner off to talk about Ray Day and Project Leander, but I had to turn it back on because it was getting hot as fuck in here. I live in the South. It's hot. Okay, so next up, the Carnival is God. On the end of the sixth Joker's card, basically, the Wraith. The very last song is called The Unveiling, in which they unveil that the Carnival is a metaphor for God. A lot of people felt a lot of different ways about that. I didn't have really much of a feeling one way or the other because I already knew that. If you were listening to ICP's lyrics, you already knew that the Carnival was a metaphor for the afterlife. So I don't really see what the big deal was with that. Great album, though. The Wraith's a great album, I think. It's one of ICP's best. Not their best, but one of them. Isham pulling a gun on Jay. As I said, they had a tumultuous relationship. And this is no different. I mean, it started out tumultuous. They played a show with Isham in Detroit. Isham asked them to play the entirety of his new album, Kill the Fetus, before they went on stage. ICP was like, no, we're not going to play the whole fucking album. Basically, I think ICP said something like, fuck Isham or something like that. He got really pissed, went over to Jay's house, and he pulled a gun out. Violent J talked him down, cooler heads prevailed, no one died. But yeah, like I said earlier, Isham and ICP have had a fucking rocky relationship. It's really just Isham and Violent J. I don't know that he's had any beef with Shaggy at all, but I know him and Jay have had some rough times. Riders, or better known as the Psychopathic Riders. This is a side project, not entirely unlike Dark Lotus. It originally consisted of ICP, Twiztid, Blaze, and Misery. Misery was a person signed to Psychopathic in 1997, I think. 97 or 98. And he only released like one album on Psychopathic called Paralela Isla. It's actually a pretty solid hip-hop record if you like hip-hop. But it didn't mesh well with the Juggalos. But he was in Riders, Psychopathic Riders. It was ICP, Twiztid, Blaze, Misery. They released an album called Dumpin'. It was all over stolen beats. Which again, product of the 90s, yo. You can't really do that now. A band as big as ICP, I don't think would get away with that now. Or maybe they would. I don't know. I really don't. But they certainly they were selling these albums on their tours and on their web stores, but like, you know, I don't think they were being sent to, at least not initially. They were not initially being sent to chain record stores. Now later you did see Psychopathic Riders albums in chain record stores, so I don't really know how they got away with profiting off those beats. I really fucking don't. I don't know what I'm not a lawyer, in case you hadn't picked up on this. I am not a lawyer. Actually, I work in IT. So I have no idea how that happened, but they did. They profited like a motherfucker off of those stolen beats. Project Born was the first act signed to Psychopathic Records, by ICP. They were signed in 1994, and they released an album called Born Dead. Project Born's Born Dead. And you may know Project Born if you listen to Forgotten Freshness Volume 1 and 2. It features a song called Graveyard, featuring Project Born. I never got super into Project Born, but yeah, they were an interesting group. Just the interesting, I guess, mostly for the fact that they were signed to Psychopathic before anyone else. You know, they predated Twiztid, Misery, Blaze, all of them, you know, so know your history. The original Juggalo show, there was a radio station in Detroit called The Edge, and it was, I want to say it was 105.1, and, because I listened to those Juggalo shows a lot back in the day. I think it was 105.1, it's what they kept saying. I always heard point, with the decimal, I would always hear them say, you know, like here in North Carolina, they call it 106.5, 93.3. But Jay and Shaggy always called it 105.1. And maybe that's a Midwestern thing. Maybe in the Midwest people say .1 instead of .1. I don't know. Regardless, the Juggalo show was ICP's first venture into radio, and they would go on to do a lot in radio. Actually, podcasting became a very big thing for ICP. So, and the Juggalo show was, you can find it. I think you can probably find it on YouTube. They're funny as hell. They're a lot of fun. Change from Dead Carnival to Dark Carnival. So from Carnival of Carnage, Ringmaster, and Riddlebox, ICP's first 3 albums, the Dark Carnival is not called the Dark Carnival, it's called the Dead Carnival. And I believe in the liner notes it's even referred to as the Dead Carnival up until Malenko, and then it changed over to the Dark Carnival. I don't know why they changed it from Dead Carnival to Dark Carnival. But either way, I think I prefer Dead Carnival just because of the old schooliness of it. Maybe that's the only reason why, but I prefer Dead Carnival. But it's Dark Carnival unequivocally. Thrown Off Family Values tour around the same time as the whole Project Leander and Ray Day thing. They were no, maybe not. It might not be around the same time. That might have predated it a little bit. Yeah, it's not around the same time. I'm completely wrong. Because this is Family Values 99, I think. And so, yeah, if it was Family Values 99, then it predated the Ray Day Project Leander stuff by a pretty good margin, actually. Regardless, ICP was invited to be on the Family Values tour. And it was going to be Limp Bizkit, ICP, I think DMX, a couple others. I don't remember. Maybe it was Family Values 2000. Was there a Family Values in 2000? I really don't recall. I really fucking don't. But ICP was scheduled to be on the Family Values tour, and MTV told the Family Values tour if they took ICP on tour with them that they would not cover the event. And so ICP was thrown off Family Values tour. And that is that. Wraith Hand Trace from a Limp Bizkit album. Limp Bizkit keeps popping up. It's funny because Limp Bizkit and ICP have an interesting history together. Now that I think about it, I never really thought about it much before, but considering they have collaborated, at least Fred Durst has collaborated with ICP on the Mighty Death Pop, and Shaggy trying to dropkick Fred Durst or pretending like he was trying to dropkick Fred Durst. Their history goes back a good ways. Anyway, the Wraith Hand, if you look at the album The Wraith, take a close look at the Wraith's hand. Now look at the album Significant Other, the cover for the album Significant Other by Limp Bizkit. Look at the two hands, compare the two. They're pretty much the exact same hand. It looks like someone traced the hand from Significant Other for the Wraith's hand. It looks too close for comfort like it. There's no way it's not traced by it. In my humble opinion, anyway. That's really all there is to that. Through Your Eyes and Frankenstein were ICP disses. So Through Your Eyes is a song on Mirror Mirror that Twiztid released. Mirror Mirror is an album Twiztid released in 2002. There's a song on it called Through Your Eyes. Frankenstein was released a year later on the album The Green Book by Twiztid. Both of them were heavily speculated by Juggalos to be subliminal disses to Insane Clown Posse by Twiztid on ICP's own label. Violent J even got drunk one night and came on the internet. He used to have a screen name called Nobody Fresh. And you can still find this transcript if you look for it. If you want the transcript, you can send me a fucking email. Or don't send me an email. Maybe send me an email. Yeah, don't send me an email. I'll post in the comments and I'll send you the link. Okay, yeah, don't send me an email. Just ask in the comments, or maybe I'll add the link to the transcript in the description. Maybe I'll do that. We'll see what happens. Just, if you don't see it there, then ask me for it. I'll send it to you. There's a transcript still available where Violent J was drunk and online on an AOL chat room, and he was basically telling people that he knew Frankenstein was a diss to him. And yeah, I mean, so there was. I don't know that it was a diss to them. Actually, if I had to guess, I would say it was not a diss to them, but there was at least some there was some smoke. There was smoke. I don't know if there was actually fire producing that smoke or if the smoke was just producing itself somehow. But there was a reason people thought it. I'll say that much. Fist fight with Tom York. This is okay. So Tom York is the singer, if you don't know, of Radiohead, and I'm a big fan of Radiohead actually. So this story is extra funny to me. But basically, Radiohead is if you don't know Radiohead, they are like the polar opposite band of ICP. If you ask me what's the opposite of ICP, it would be Radiohead. They are completely different music. Okay. Now I think most music critics would argue that Radiohead is infinitely better than ICP. I would argue that both are great. But in any case, to be fair, most Juggalos don't like Radiohead. Most Radiohead fans don't like ICP. I am the overlap in that little Venn diagram, I guess. But basically in Violent J's book, Behind the Paint, he elaborates that Tom York was they were playing a show at a festival or something, and Radiohead was also there. I don't know in what universe Radiohead and ICP are sharing the same stage. That is a crazy fucking thought to me. But I would have loved to have seen that show. But Tom York was trying to get into ICP's dressing room. ICP wasn't having it. And Billy Bill, ICP's bodyguard, punched Tom York in the face, allegedly. That's what Violent J said in his book. Now, Tom York's never commented on that. Riots at the Gathering 2001 and 2002. So in 2001, I did not go to the Gathering 2001, but I know that essentially what happened was ICP was supposed to reveal an image of the 6th Joker's card at 2001 Gathering during their set, and Juggalos kind of stormed the stage maybe 25 minutes into ICP's set, and there was some rioting going on, and it fucked everything up. But it did not, I don't think, get to the level that it got to in 2002, which I did go to that gathering. And I was right in the middle of the riots when they happened. And basically what happened there was women were flashing their tits a lot at the gathering. And the police, for some fucking reason, I don't really know why, but the police were allowed inside the Civic Center. Maybe police are just allowed in the Civic Center. I don't know. But the gatherings now, police are not allowed in. But they can only come in if they suspect a crime and have probable cause or whatever. But at the Civic Center, they were just allowed entry. So women were flashing their tits, and as a result, they were being arrested. And Juggalos were not vibing with that very well. I was actually in line. It was Saturday. So that would have been July 20th, because that gathering was the July 19th, 20th, and 21st, 2002. So it would have been July 20th on Saturday. And basically, Juggalos were not... I was standing in line for the ICP seminar on Saturday. And as the cops were arresting more and more women, the Juggalos were starting to chant shit like "fuck the police," and then it kind of erupted into Juggalos throwing stuff at the cops, and then the cops kind of retreated for a moment and came back with a bunch of tear gas, started shooting it at everyone indiscriminately. I saw one of those little pepper balls bounce off the wall right by my head. I wasn't even doing anything. I was standing in line upstairs. They were shooting them at people upstairs who weren't even doing anything. But anyway, they came in full riot gear and just cleared the place out. It was really fucking wild. Oddly enough, I was pretty sure the gathering was going to get shut down. And that would have been fucking lame. But oddly enough, they let the gathering resume. A bunch of people got arrested. Actually... I won't go into that. But I did not get arrested. A lot of people did, though. And, that was basically the riots at the gathering. The gathering was allowed to finish, much to my surprise, but much to my happiness as well. Okay, Perpetual Hype Engine. Remember when I said Juggalo was the first rock band signed to Psychopathic? I was mistaken. I forgot about Perpetual Hype Engine. They're easy to forget about. They were really only on Psychopathic for like a second or two. But they were, I believe they were the first rock band signed to Psychopathic. They never released anything. The only thing they contributed to Psychopathic was playing the backup band, being the backup band for the song Let's Go All the Way, as I previously mentioned. 9/11 is a sign of the 6th. Okay, so there was some really weird shit right after 9/11 that I want to say it was some member of the Psychopathic team. I don't think it was Jay or Shaggy. I'm positive it wasn't Shaggy, but I don't think it was Jay either. It was some member of the Psychopathic team on or around 9/11. They said something to the effect of, in regards to 9/11, they said something to the effect of the 6th is coming and there's nothing we can do about it. Basically trying to correlate the events of 9/11 with the coming of the Wraith, which was not in good taste. Moreover, there was a picture of smoke. Hello. I am adding an addendum right quick. I said there's a picture of smoke. I didn't say where the smoke was coming from. There was a picture of smoke coming from the World Trade Center just before it collapsed. I'm coming back through and inserting this because it's not clear where I meant the smoke was coming from. In like a triangular shape. An upside down triangle, kind of shaped like the Jekyll brothers, and it had what appeared to be a face in it. I don't know if it was photoshopped or not, but it kind of resembled a Jekyll brothers face. Not really. It didn't really resemble a Jekyll brothers face, but if you were looking for that, I guess you could see it. But that was getting posted around by really fanatical people who believed in, like, the Dark Carnival as a real living entity, which I never did. If you did, that's fine. You can believe whatever you want, but I never bought into any of that. So I thought the whole thing was really kind of gross, but like at the same time, I think they pulled that post pretty quick from ICP.com as well. And I think there was even an apology made or something to the effect of we didn't mean to offend anyone, something along those lines. It wasn't really a big deal, but it was weird. It was just like, why did you say that? Real Juggahos or RJH and Shatupon. So this was a big deal. Kind of before the Gathering 2002. The months leading up to the Gathering 2002, where ICP did finally unveil the 6th Joker's card, which was, of course, the Wraith. There was a guy called Shatupon, and he ran a website called Real Juggahos, which was a parody of RealJuggalos.com. And basically it was trying to expose Violent J in particular, saying that he was a bad person, that he nothing crazy, like nothing to my memory anyway. There was no like Me Too type stuff on there or anything like that. It was more like just that he was money hungry and that he was a dick to his fans and stuff like that. Now, I can tell you, I've met Violent J 3 times in my life, okay? And all 3 times that I met him, he was very cordial and nice and friendly to me, and I'm no one, so I mean it's not like he would need to put on airs for me. So in my experience, I can only speak for myself here. My experience with knowing Violent J is he was friendly, nice. One of the times I met him, he was very drunk actually, which was at the Gathering 2003. We were standing on the basketball court, him and I, after Twiztid set, shooting the shit. He wasn't wearing any face paint or anything, and he was noticeably drunk. But he was fine. I mean, he was being totally cool, and we were literally talking about Isham, and our fandom of Isham. That's what we were discussing, and he had no reason to talk to me other than he just wanted to. So I don't know that I buy all that, but I have heard from other people that Jay has been a dick. But my whole take on that is, everybody's a dick sometimes. And when you meet thousands of people throughout tours and gatherings, somebody's bound to have a bad experience. So there were some pretty not so flattering stories about Jay on Real Juggalos. And on top of that, it came after the whole Ray Day thing. So there was some reason to maybe buy into the fact that Jay wasn't who he was saying he was. But I never bought too heavily into all that stuff. To me, this is just music. This is entertainment. I know a lot of people put a lot more stock into it than that, and to them, it's a whole lot more. It's something that they live their life by. And I just see it as entertainment. So even if Jay is an asshole, it's not affecting me that much. Is his music still good? That's my question. But there were a lot of stories saying that he was. It was kind of turning the whole Juggalo community. It was an attempt to turn the whole Juggalo community against Jay, and a lot of Juggalos really bought into it, and so much so that Jay addresses it in his book. He never calls the site out by name in the book, but the book's called Behind the Paint, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that or not, but it was very evident within the subtext who he was talking about. And he was basically, I remember now, if you watch the ICP seminar from the Gathering 2002, you can watch that today on YouTube. Gathering Seminar 2002, search for it on YouTube. There's a moment where Violent J says, it's in the book as well, but if you don't want to read the book, you can see it in this video. There's a moment in there where he says, while I was recording the Wraith, I would go online and I'd watch y'all talk. And it was pretty clear what he was alluding to. Again, I don't think he wanted to give the website any credit. I don't think he wanted to prop them up in any way, shape, or form, or even acknowledge them technically. So he never says Real Juggalos. He never says Shat Upon. But it's clear that's what he was talking about. He knew. He was aware of the situation. And Shat Upon claimed at one point, or at many points, I should say, actually, that he was getting a lot of his inside information from a guy named Mr. X, and that Mr. X was a member of Psychopathic Records for a very long time. And I don't remember if that person's identity was ever revealed or not. But it's entirely possible that person didn't even exist. I don't know. And I don't really care that much. But it was an interesting tidbit within the Juggalo community, especially at the time. Violent J being drugged out and extremely thirsty during the live streams 2020 and 2021. Yeah, so during 2020 and 2021, and I think even going into 2022, ICP were doing a lot of these live streams during COVID, and they were. Let me just start off by saying they were pretty fucking entertaining and even very informative, I would say. But in several of them, Violent J was acting kooky, and that's a strange thing to say for someone like Violent J, because he's usually acting fucking kooky, but something was off about him, and anytime there was like a female guest, Jay would kind of lust after her almost. He didn't do anything that I think would maybe it would. I don't know, but I don't think it would constitute harassment. He was just really into all the chicks that were on the show, and he was always talking about how lonely he was and how he needed a woman and stuff. It was just coming up way too often, and it was like this is not a light that I want to see Jay in. And it was also kind of clear that Shaggy and Jumpsteady were getting irritated as fuck with Jay at times. But having said that, right after that happened, Jay went to rehab. So it wasn't, I don't think it was just in people's heads that Jay was acting strange. I think he was on drugs. And interesting things like his face paint would look really sloppy in some of those episodes. And Shaggy's was pristine, and you're used to seeing Jay and Shaggy with pretty pristine makeup, but he would show up with his face paint kind of half fucked up, and there was a lot of clues that something was going on with Jay before it was announced that he had gone to rehab. And from what I understand now, he's fine. Good for him. He's not the only one that's had a drug problem. I've had one, and I know several people who have had one. So I don't judge. But it was a thing that happened, and you can still find some of those streams on YouTube. I think I haven't looked for them in a while, but you can. And I don't know which one specifically to tell you to watch. Probably just have to watch all of them, but some of them, Jay is noticeably off. Remedy from darklotus.net. Remedy was a dude who ran a fan site called darklotus.net, and it had all kinds of instructions on it about how to contact the carnival. Again, I don't put a lot of stock into that sort of thing. I never saw the Dark Carnival as a living entity. I saw it as entertainment and really nothing more. But a lot of people thought that shit was... The instructions basically were to put on the song Ringmaster's Word from the album Ringmaster, put it on in a dark room on repeat, and you would hear or see things that the carnival was basically gonna come alive in your bedroom at night or something. I don't know, but I never did it, so I can't say if it worked or not. I suspect not, but apparently I just got alerted to this yesterday. Apparently Remedy stole that whole thing from Purgatory is Odd, which was another Juggalo fan site. You've got to understand how many Juggalo fan sites there were. I could do a whole couple hours on this thing just talking about Juggalo fan sites. There were so many, and all of them. I even worked for one at one point. I worked for one called JuggaloScrubs.com, and there was a bunch. And some of them would feud. And apparently, from what I read on Reddit the other day, that guy Remedy stole the whole contact in the carnival idea from the guy who ran PurgatoryIsOdd.com. I have no idea about any of that stuff. I didn't try to contact the carnival, and that's all I can say on that. I don't think... I mean, Violent J came out and said on the 6th Joker's card that the carnival is God, and it's a metaphor for God, so... I guess if people did have experiences with that, then they were contacting God. I don't know. I'm not religious, so I don't know. It's whatever you believe is fine with me. I don't care. Okay, we've got Violent J writes most or all of Shaggy's verses. These are getting significantly less fun. And this is not something I really thought about much until fairly recently, actually. But apparently, Violent J writes most or all of Shaggy's verses. I don't think he writes all of them, but he definitely writes a lot of them. There is a whole post about this on Reddit, and I may link that in the description as well. But basically, it's kind of irrefutable at this point. Shaggy's even admitted that he hasn't said Jay, but he has admitted that he's had ghostwriters. So I think Shaggy is more of a voice than he is a writer when it comes to ICP, which is kind of, I don't know. I wish I didn't know that. I guess that's the best thing I can say. I wish I didn't know that. The Mighty Heckler. Okay, finally, back to another fun one. The Mighty Heckler is not a real Joker's card. But before the 6th came out, before the Wraith came out, it was a highly, highly speculated name of the 6th Joker's card, the Mighty Heckler. There was even a supposed track list that included songs like Midway Murderer, Haunted Ha, and another Ned and Game. And I don't remember the full track list, but I do remember. I may be able to find the full track list. I'm going to actually, for the first time on this video, do some research, and I will be right back. Okay, I found it. So you can type into Google, just type in Insane Clown Posse, and then in quotation marks, type in the Mighty Heckler. And it will take you to a very old website. And you can take a look at it. It shows right here. This post, I don't even know what date this post is. It must be probably sometime 2000, between 2000 and 2002 for certain. There have been rumors that the 6th Joker's card will be called the Mighty Heckler, the Butterfly, or the Red Magician. I got this info from someone. That's great. I got this info from someone. And the track list was Intro, Magic Show, Enter the Freak, Carney Killa, Another Ned and Game, Midway Murderer, Haunted Ha, Hall of Shame, Millennium, Unleash the Butterfly, The Mighty Heckler, Jekyll Brothers Finale, Magician's Final Trick, Fate of the Riddle Box, Ringmaster's Last Word, The Carnival's Closing, The Coming of Shangri-La, and The End. I don't know if this stuff is fake or not, but I think it is real. It is also rumored ICP will make 6 more Joker's cards for the new millennium. Well, they were partially right. ICP is making 6 more Joker's cards. They're on number 5. They're coming up on number 6 now, I guess. So at least that part of it turned out to be true. I love their source, though, being someone. Just riveting journalism there, guy. Anyway, so yeah, that was the Mighty Heckler. Also, apparently, the Red Magician was another rumored name. I remember another one, people saying it was going to be called the Magical Book of Fun Row, which would have been a terrible, terrible name. I'm glad they didn't go with that. And, of course, the Mighty Heckler never happened, but the Mighty Death Pop did, so that's kind of cool. Okay, moving on. We've got Quietly Kicked Off Island Records. I don't know if that's true or not, but I do know that it was heavily rumored that ICP was quietly removed from Island Records after Bizarre Bazaar. ICP said that someone forgot to renew their contract or renew something, and they got to slip out of the contract. And a lot of people said that actually what happened was that they were quietly kicked off of Island Records and didn't want to make a spectacle about it. And if that were true, it would have made Sharon Osbourne's bet winning seem a little more solid. I don't know that that's true. In fact, it may well not be true. I'm just telling you what was kind of in people's heads at the time. But it was a rumor. Golden Goldies. Okay, so Golden Goldies was an album that was released. I don't think Golden Goldies was ever released to the public. Not on purpose, anyway. It was basically an album that ICP made when the Great Malenko went gold. And basically, it's it's like every member of Psychopathic Records, not even non-rappers, taking on these personas dealing with gold somehow. Like there's like gold. I can't remember any of their names, but there's like all their names had something to do with gold, and all the songs were about wanting gold. And I remember like the opening line of the album being like, "Give me them fucking nuggets, bitch, or I'll punch your fucking face," you know. And they're talking about wanting gold. It was kind of a precursor for the Psychopathic Riders, actually. But yeah, Golden Goldies. I don't know that was ever released purposefully. I don't think I've ever seen at least an official release on that. It leaked to the internet. I know that. You can find it on the internet. You can still find it today on the internet. Go on YouTube and type in Insane Clown Posse Golden Goldies. You'll probably find it pretty quick. But yeah, Golden Goldies, it was an interesting album. It was it was funny. It was very funny. Yeah, it was just a weird fucking thing. Okay. Getting down to the bottom here. Rude Boy was Zug Island's original singer. Originally, or not, I don't know if originally, but before Sin, there was a moment where Rude Boy was going to be Zug Island's singer. And it was even a rumor on the message board I was on most, which was psychopathictraders.com, PT for short. It was a rumor on that there were demos in existence of Rude Boy singing some of the Zug Island songs. And by the way, if you don't know who Rude Boy is, he was an employee of Psychopathic Records. He might still be. I don't know if he still works for Psychopathic or not, but he used to, and he's one of Violent J's best friends. Anyway, it's a good thing that Rudy was not the singer for Zug Island. I think everyone would agree on that pretty much. I don't think anyone was clamoring for a Rude Boy rock album. I don't think anyone was clamoring for that. Literally no one. No disrespect to Rude Boy. I just don't think anybody was wanting that. The Necronomicon. Okay, if you listen to the song Swarm on Dark Lotus's album Tales from the Lotus Pod, you'll hear Violent J kind of quietly say, at the beginning of the song, you'll hear him say, Necronomicon is coming. And a lot of people were like, what the fuck does that mean? Necronomicon is coming. Now, Necronomicon, you all probably know from either Evil Dead or H.P. Lovecraft, if you're a reader. I guess ICP was trying to repurpose the Necronomicon for their own lore, which is fine. I don't have any problem with that. But yeah, there was going to be like 4 or 5 albums released, and they were going to contain maps. They were going to take you to somewhere where the Necronomicon was, and that may have been the how they were originally going to reveal the 6th Joker's card. I don't really recall. I really don't. But I know that like it never materialized into anything. They talked about it on the hotlines. If you called the ICP hotlines back in the day, Jamie Madrox, there was the Twiztid hotline, there was the ICP hotline. There are a few different hotlines, actually. Like at least 3 or 4 or 5. I think there was a JCW hotline. I think there was a... I know there was an ICP hotline. There was a Twiztid hotline. There was a Psychopathic Riders hotline, oddly enough. But it was the number... There was a code in... Or not a code. There was a quiz in the Amazing Jekyll Brothers booklet. And if you guessed all the answers right, it would give you a phone number. And you called that and you got the Psychopathic Riders debut album, Dumpin'. That's how everybody got the original album. Or that's how everybody tried to get the original album. And then they decided, screw that, we're just going to sell it. I really, this whole thing is going off the rails here. The bottom line is, what am I even fucking talking about right now? Am I still talking about the Necronomicon? Yeah, I guess I am. Nothing ever materialized in the Necronomicon. That's all I know. Oh yeah, now I remember. They were talking about the Necronomicon. They were hyping it up a little bit on the hotlines. Jamie Madrox used to come on the Twiztid hotline all the time and update. And he would answer all kinds of questions. He really seemed to enjoy doing it, and, we really enjoyed listening. But yeah, he talked about it a lot. Jay talked about it some. And there was going to be like a few albums that if you bought all of them, then they would come together to form a map, and that would take you to the Necronomicon. I don't know how that would have worked. Would the map also tell you what time to get there, what day? I don't know. But it doesn't matter because, again, nothing ever materialized of it. If that's why it's so deep on there. If you remember the Necronomicon being mentioned back in the day, then you've been around for a long time. Or if you've not been around for a long time, you have really done your homework. So yeah, that's why that's so deep on there. And lastly, wow, I'm at the end. This video has gone on so fucking long. Shaggy 2 Dope may have legitimately murdered someone, and that's a great way to end because it's a funny one. Shaggy, I don't think actually murdered anyone. I put that on there as kind of a joke because there is an episode of the Shaggy and the Creep Show in which Shaggy confesses, I'm doing air quotes right now, quote unquote confesses to murder. But it's pretty well known that it's a joke. I put that on there as kind of a joke. I put that on there so people would be like, what the fuck, Shaggy murdered someone? But no, I don't think he actually murdered someone. Shaggy did not murder someone. Probably not. I mean, he may have. I don't know. I don't know Shaggy 2 Dope. I've met him a couple times as well, but I don't know if he's murdered anyone. I mean, I don't even know if, some of my best friends may have murdered someone and I don't know. People I do know, I don't know if they've murdered someone. So how would I know if Shaggy's murdered someone or not? That's it. That is the end of the video. I can't believe I made it this far. I can't believe I finished this. It felt like it was going to go on for fucking ever. But here we are. Here we are at the end. Thanks for listening. And I did make another Iceberg video. I could make 20 of these fucking things with how many memories I have of all the shit that's happened on Psychopathic and around in the Juggalo community over the last 20 fucking 5 or 6 years that I've been listening to this shit. I could make so many of these, so I may make another video like this, probably not anytime soon, because goddamn, this took forever. But yeah, thanks again for listening, and don't do drugs unless you want to.